Here we go. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're live right here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, we greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. It is a beautiful Thursday, November 7th, and there's a lot to talk about on the Niners front. Here's our 49ers Report rundown for the live program here today. Tom Brady went on with Colin Cowherd today on the Herd, Fox Sports Radio. And I thought he had some really interesting things to say about Brock Purdy, this 49ers offense, and what the return of Christian McCaffrey can do for this football team. So I want to go through what he talked about and give you some of my thoughts as well. And I think that's going to be a very informative segment for everybody out there. That's what we always try to do here on this show. Coming up on Sunday, Niners exit the bye. They've been preparing all week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we will do a 49ers-Buccaneers preview. Could the Niners do something special the back half of the season? We have some more encouraging Christian McCaffrey injury news, and we'll do a mailbag. Let's hear from the faithful. We're going to open up the floor and take all of your questions, all of your hot takes, and your analysis, so be a part of the show, and you can start doing that right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. First, if you are excited for the return of 49ers football, I want you to type SF in the chat, and I'm giving shout outs for the next 10 seconds to everybody who is doing that. KDG was the first one. Anthony Stewart, Christopher Florney, Ty Man the Buckeye, Elmero, Katie, Juan, Damian, Shane Kirshner, what's up, my man? Who else is going to do it? Brad Terrian, Gabriel Hampton, Charles Smith, Phillies Beats, Jesse LaBarge, Darren Taylor, Jay, Harold, X. Any new ones? Death Destroyer of Words, Ian 16. And I bet you listen to country music. I actually listen to all types of music, but rap is my favorite genre. Some 49ers who are practicing today, by the way. Some good injury news on this front with the Niners exiting the bye, getting ready to fly to Florida to take on Tampa Bay. Christian McCaffrey on the practice field. Wide receiver Juwan Jennings. Kicker Jake Moody. Punter Mitch Wisnowski. Offensive lineman John Feliciano. And defensive lineman Yetur Gross-Matos. All those players practicing today. Deebo Samuel, Jordan Mason, in the blue non-contact jersey, but they were at least partaking in some of those practice sessions. And here's what Richard Sherman had to say about McCaffrey, him coming back, and how he's feeling. This has to get some people feeling pretty good. I heard it from the horse's mouth, Sherman said. He feels really good, and he felt like he could have probably played last week, but they wanted to be overly cautious and just give him more weeks of practice and more time to work that thing out to feel comfortable and feel confident, and he does. All signs point to him playing, and it's not just playing for Christian McCaffrey, according to Richard Sherman. Probably a significant role in the game. So I do wonder how much we're going to see CMC against the Bucs on Sunday. Only time will tell, and again, we'll preview that Niners-Buccaneers game coming up here in just a bit. Cerebral Assassin, a $2 super chat. What's up, Chase? We sent you a hat last week, my man. You should be getting it very soon. Really appreciate your support, and thanks so much for watching the show. We do want to give a shout out to two of our sponsors who are making today's 49ers Report possible. The first one is Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy, the best DFS app in the game. Right now, if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and you use the code CLNS, you get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. You pick two or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win some big-time money. So pick more, pick less. Run your game with Prize Picks today. Our other sponsor, Game Time, the best ticketing app in the industry. You get the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. They have tickets for concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and games if you want to go to a sporting event, including Niners games on the road or home at Levi's Stadium. You can see the view from your seat before you buy. so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Use that code CHATSPORTS, $20 off. Terms apply, first purchase only. Just download the Game Time app and create an account. What is your favorite song from X? And you're calling Chiefs Swifties. For me, my favorite song, Juicy by Biggie. That is my go-to song, especially for karaoke. It was all a dream. Our Super Chat battle for today. Can we take down some other rival channels here? Seahawks today, earlier this week, they got $55 in Super Chats. The Cowboys report, $110. Eagles now, $210. I want to make a deal with the people. If we beat the highest number here, Eagles now $210, we will pick a winner for a 49ers Report hat. But we have to beat $210 in Super Chats. So that is the deal on this Thursday, November 7th. We'll be doing a mailbag today. Be sure to start getting those questions in right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a Super Chat. Always enjoy chopping it up with the faithful and talking to some of our real ones and loyal subscribers. If you're ready to start the show, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. 110 people watching live, 37 likes. The more likes that we get, the more people who find the stream and the more fun that we will have. So continue to smash that thumbs up icon, like the video. It's Chase Sr., Jake Chipper, and the faithful hanging out on a Thursday.
Yup. Let's see. How we doing, everybody? Look at Juan getting the first question in.
Cerebral Assassin, his second Super Chat of the day. Can't wait for my hat. Yeah, I wrote you a little letter as well, just thanking you for all of your support. So sent that out last week. You should be getting it very, very soon. We're up to 47 likes, 124 people watching live. Continue to massage that thumbs up icon and like the video right now. X saying bang bang. I see Ian in the chat. D-Shot, Q's Flow, all in the building. G-Tag Master saying hello. What up, G-Tag Master? We put out a show a little bit earlier today, by the way, with what Richard Sherman said about the Christian McCaffrey injury. He expects McCaffrey, as he said, he heard from the horse's mouth, to have a big role in this football game. And we also talked about how the Niners could break free from their 4-4 record and go on a run the second half of the season. That video, 5,000 views and counting. If you want to be able to check that out, you can go check it out on the channel. But make sure you do it after the live show because we have a lot of great coverage and videos coming your way right now. All right, 130 people watching live, 52 likes. Continue to comment, subscribe, share the video, hit that thumbs up icon. We got a lot to talk about today. So let's get the official show underway right now. Hey there, welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. And no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, Tom Brady and Colin Cowherd had a very interesting conversation about Brock Purdy, the Niners, and how Christian McCaffrey coming back can really benefit this Niners offense. I want to go through what Tom Brady had to say. He's going to be on the call for Niners Buccaneers on Sunday, and I think a lot of you are going to enjoy the show. Programming reminder, we will be live for Niners Buccaneers on Sunday. NFL Week 10 action in Florida. Niners coming off the bye, looking to get above 500 with the win. They will be 5-4. We will get started with an hour pregame show, and our coverage begins 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So be sure to lock us in and hit that sub button for year-round and daily coverage of the San Francisco 49ers. So to give you a recap of everything that we're talking about here today, Colin Cowherd, Tom Brady, Thursday on the Herd, Fox Sports Radio, FS1, talked about a couple of different subject matters. What about Brock Purdy impresses Tom Brady, who's right up there with Joe Montana as two of the top quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League? How Brock Purdy runs this offense and the strengths that he has. And then lastly, the impact of Christian McCaffrey and some of the other players on this Niners team. So let's begin with what impressed Brady about Brock Purdy. And remember a couple of years ago when Brock Purdy was inserted as the Niners starter, taking over for Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. He had a heck of a game when Tom Brady's Buccaneers traveled to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Here's what Brady had to say. I think about Purdy, it's his poise and composure. It's him being calm under chaos. That's what the quarterback needs to do. When he walks in that huddle, he needs 10 other guys to look at him and go, all right, man, you're totally under control. And whatever you say, we're going to do our best because we know you're going to deliver. And they all have that confidence in Brock Purdy as a player. Brock is not the biggest athlete. His arm strength is not like Aaron Rodgers. But if he can play with anticipation, and this offense to me, even studying the last few days, the offense is different than what they did last year and the year before. They had so many weapons the last couple of years. Brock essentially was a point guard out there, delivering balls to halfbacks, flip it out to Debo to gain yards. He had Ayuk catching in cuts. Oh, you forget about George Kittle? Then the Niners throw it over the top. And some of my takeaways with what Brady said there, he must watch the show because I've been talking about these things, all jokes aside, for a really, really long time. What stands out to me about Purdy, he has a couple of elite traits that help him make up for the lack of size and the lack of arm strength that Tom Brady mentioned. That's poise, that's calmness. He has a composure about him. He played so much football at Iowa State, so when he started his NFL career, he didn't look overwhelmed because he's seen a lot throughout his football life, and he has vast experience. And when you think about some of the other teammate and tangible things that Brady noted, Brock Purdy's teammates have always rallied around him. They've always supported him. Fred Warner said it from day one when Purdy was one of the practice squad quarterbacks. Even in training camp when he was a rookie, Fred Warner noticed that he had it. Nick Bosa has said that. George Kittle has said that. And Purdy's teammates clearly have confidence in him as a player because a lot of them have gone on record and they've said, what does Purdy need to do to prove to people that he's a legitimate quarterback in this league? We know he's not a freak athlete. He doesn't have height of Josh Allen. He doesn't have arm strength of Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have some of the natural abilities of Patrick Mahomes. But how Purdy is able to make up for that is how other great quarterbacks have been able to make up for it. Joe Montana was not a freak athlete with a bazooka for an arm. Either was Tom Brady. But Joe Montana, Tom Brady, Brock Purdy, they excelled with timing, accuracy, anticipation, processing. You can't always coach that. And Purdy has those skills with his ability to layer footballs in, to man the middle of the field. I think his deep ball accuracy is very underrated. So too is the improvisational aspect to his game where he can really create out of structure with his feet and with his legs. And in previous years, Purdy has been surrounded by a full cast of weapons. This year, though, it's been a little bit more chaotic. He didn't have Brandon Ayuk all throughout training camp and in the preseason. Then Ayuk goes down. Debo's been hurt. George Kittle missed a game. Didn't have Trent Williams throughout training camp and in the preseason. No Christian McCaffrey. So Purdy has had to make do. And when you look at his numbers, last year he was top 5 in MVP voting. He was so efficient. This year he's completing under 65% of his passes. 2,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. So the numbers are down a little bit. But at moments this year, because he's had to do more with less, I actually think Purdy has played some of the best football in moments throughout his career. Has he had some bad games? No doubt about that. Against Minnesota, against Kansas City, 2 really good defenses. But things have been a little bit unstable around him, and at moments he's been able to make do. So today's poll question is this. We have a lot more to get to here on the show. By the way, don't you go anywhere. Is Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback in this league? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let your voices be heard right here on the 49ers Report down in the comment section right now. Let's pay our bills. We really appreciate Prize Picks for making today's 49ers Report possible. The best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. You win big money. You can withdraw your winnings within the Prize Picks app. Just go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that code CLNS. Some of our selections for Niners Bucs on Sunday. Juwan Jennings, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. Now that he's healthy coming off that hip, Brandon Ayuk is out. He will have a larger role. George Kittle's been in fuego this year. More than 55.5 receiving yards. And then Baker Mayfield, less than 241.5 passing yards. Pick more, pick less. Daily fantasy sports made easy. prizepicks.com/CLNS. We'll put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of today's 49ers report. As for what Tom Brady had to say about Christian McCaffrey coming back and why he's so important to this offense, we've talked a lot on this show about what CMC is going to be able to bring San Francisco. This is a different set of eyes from one of the GOATs in Brady. He provides that passing threat out of the backfield, Brady said, that they just haven't had this year. So now the defense has to come up close to the line of scrimmage to defend the run with Christian as well as the pass. And that, to me, opens up more of the intermediate and deeper parts of the field for Brock, where they've kind of been throwing the intermediate type targets on the field this year, which I don't think is necessarily the strength of this offense. And I agree with Brady there. Just the mere presence of CMC being on the field, the defense has to account for him at all times. It helps to keep the defense off guard. He's also such a dynamic runner, a clean route runner and receiver. You can use him in a variety of ways as a receiver. Wheel routes, checkdowns out of the slot. I think he's going to help the Niners' 28th ranked red zone offense. And it's another weapon again to stress that defense. More from Brady on the Niners receiving core. Losing Brandon Ayuk, a brutal loss, but you have drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. He's going to get his legs underneath of him. You have Jennings, who's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL, and then Debo with his versatility. You still have Kyle Juszczyk, who's a ridiculous chess piece for Kyle, and then you have Kittle, who can turn up from time to time, and you go, holy cow, we almost forgot about him. Other Brady notes of note, he referenced that the Niners, right around the bye week, halfway pull of the season, always seem to turn it around at about this juncture of the season. He's totally right on that. Kyle Shanahan's teams have fared very well after the bye week, and over the last 3 years, in the second half of the season, they've won more than 70% of their games. The 49ers, Brady also added, and we talked about this on the show, are getting back Dre Greenlaw. He mentioned that they've really been missing Javon Hargrave as an interior defensive lineman. He made an interesting point about this Niners defense. How right now, especially up front, it's been a one-man show with Nick Bosa, and he hasn't had a lot of help. That's why some people, including me, may have been interested in at least scouring the market for another edge rusher. But that's also why Leonard Floyd, you have to step up. He has 3 sacks right now. In the last 4 years, he's had at least 9 sacks every single year. The Niners have come out of games guns a-blazing with that pass rush, but then because of the lack of depth, they've kind of trickled off and gotten tired as the game has progressed. So outside of Bosa, who leads the NFL in pressures, somebody needs to step up as far as generating pressure on the quarterback. And then Brady noted that if the Niners can get back Dre Greenlaw, and if he can play even just close to the level that he did last year, the Niners have one of the best linebacking tandems in the NFL. And that's been a weakness for this Niners defense this year because Devondre Campbell just isn't it. And Dre Greenlaw is so much better. You have Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw at that second level. It really improves this defense against the pass and against the run. My closing thoughts, look, San Francisco can go on a run. They are well coached. They have coaching talent. They have roster talent. They are battle tested. They've played in a lot of monster games. They just have to play up to their level And if they do that, they can win the NFC in what is a very wide open conference. Hugo De Jesus, a $2 super chat. Use Christian McCaffrey like Gibbs until he gets 100%. No injuries. I really like that Lions backfield. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, both are excellent players. They complement each other very well. And earlier today, when we put out our earlier show, I had said, look, McCaffrey coming back is good news. Give him 12 to 15 carries per game, right? Manage his workload. Because I still want to see the other complementary backs. Jordan Mason can play. Isaac Guerrero has been impressing me. I think you should go running back by committee and just not overuse Christian McCaffrey right when he comes back off that injury. A look at our Super Chat battle. We are up to $9 in Super Chats. We still have 3 segments left. But the Seahawks channel earlier this week, did $55 in Super Chats. The Cowboys report 110. Eagles now 210. If we beat the highest number, 210, I am going to give away a 49ers report hat. All right? So if we beat 210, I'm giving away a 49ers report hat. Another reminder, you can get those questions in right now using the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Our mailbag will come up segment number 4. Segment number 2, we're going to preview this Niners-Bucs game coming up.
Got 3 questions in so far. Shout out to Chualor, Anthony Stewart, and Juan. Keep getting those questions in. If you send in a super chat, we will answer that question at the start of the mailbag.
Good looks. Good looks, fellas. All right. Niners-Bucs preview coming up next, segment number 2. Let's get it. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and coming up, we are going to preview this Week 10 game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Niners coming out of the bye week, looking to really catch fire in the back half of the season, and with a win, they will be above 500 for the first time in a little while. Niners-Bucs, cannot wait for it. Sunday, November 10th. Kickoff set early out there on the West Coast, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific in Tampa, Raymond James Stadium. The 49ers, clearly the better team, more rested team. That goes a long way. And why they are favorites at 6.5, the total over-under at 50.5. We're going to be running it back, doing another watch party right here on the 49ers Report. We give you shows, by the way, every single day. We go live every single Thursday, and we do watch parties for all games. And anytime I'm in front of this camera on this microphone, our Niners talk aims to be as informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking as possible, and you always have a voice on this show. So hit that subscribe button and join us for the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game, 12 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Let's start off with this. The 49ers so often this year have had a rest disadvantage. But the Niners have the rest gods on their side because they finally have a rest advantage in this game. Number 1, they're coming off of a bye. Number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played on Monday Night Football on the road, lost in overtime, suffering a tough and emotional loss. And even though the Buccaneers are at home, it's a short week for them with their bye week looming. And so this is a great opportunity for this Niners team getting healthy. They've played very well in the back half of the season under Kyle Shanahan to use this game as a launching pad for the rest of the 2024 campaign. And are the Niners poised for a monster second half run? Let's talk about that here. Over the last 3 years, the Niners have won more than 70% of their games in the second half of the season. This year, 4-4. They've been disappointing. They've lost games to the Rams and Cardinals that they should not have lost. They got kind of embarrassed by the Minnesota Vikings, outright embarrassed by the Kansas City Chiefs. But just because they started slow doesn't mean they're going to end the season slow, because slow starts are nothing new for this club. In 2021, they started the season 3-5, And then they went 10-7, made it to the NFC Championship game. In 2022, they were 4-4. They make the trade for Christian McCaffrey, and they went on a 12-game winning streak. Finished the regular season 13-4, made it to the NFC Championship game. And last year, started 5-0, lost 3 games in a row, and then the rest of the way, they went 7-2, and they had home field advantage in the NFC and made it to the Super Bowl. So the 49ers here, ladies and gentlemen, can reach their height, their peak, their potential. Why? They have the coaching staff that can do it, that has done it. They have plenty of talent all across this roster, and this is a battle-tested, championship-level team that has the experience to turn it around and go on a hot tear. Under Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers, before the bye week, 21-33. But around this time every year, he seems to make adjustments. He seems to catch his groove, gain some confidence as a play caller, and he has his teams rally when they need to rally. You don't want to peak early in the year. You want to peak as the playoffs grow closer. And so the 49ers under Shanahan are 21-33 before the bye, but 43-18 after the bye since he took over as head coach back in 2017. And the last 3 years, how about this? San Francisco, 30-8 in the second half of the season, the last 3 years. That is some dominant football right there. And we have all seen the potential with this football team. Offensively, they haven't been able to turn drives into touchdown drives when getting in the red zone. It's been a huge issue for this team, and the biggest problem with the offense, which has really held them back, which is why they're at 48.5% with their red zone touchdown percentage, and that ranks 28th among 32 teams. But look elsewhere. They're 6th in third down percentage, 2nd in yards per play, 2nd in yards per game, and 6th in points per game. So that goes to show you right there, this offense has been a pretty successful unit, but I don't even think that they've come close to reaching their fullest potential. Defensively, they have to make some improvements. Have they improved a little bit since an up and down start to the year? For sure. 16th in points per game, 10th in yards per game, 12th in yards per play, 25th on third down. So they need to get better on the money downs, and 22nd in the red zone. So in critical moments, they also need to improve. As for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can't take the Buccaneers lightly. And I know a lot of fans might be, just because Tampa Bay is without Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, one of the top wide receiver duos in the National Football League. But Baker Mayfield's been playing really good ball. They have an excellent offensive line. Tristan Wirfs has been arguably the best tackle in football this year. And their running game, they have a two-headed monster where they run hard, they run physical. And that's an issue for me because San Francisco has really struggled to tackle throughout the 2024 season. But offensively, 5th in points per game and yards per game, 6th in yards per play, 2nd on third downs. And when they get inside the red zone, they're the opposite of the Niners. They score a touchdown 70.5% of the time, whereas San Francisco offensively is sub 50%. The issue with Tampa Bay is their defense. They have wildly underperformed. 28th in points per game, 30th in yards per game, 27th in yards per play, 23rd on third downs, and 21st in the red zone. So that's how both teams stack up against one another. Now let's flip the page to the Niners injury report. Charvarius Ward continues to be away from the team for personal reasons. Our thoughts and prayers are with him, sending him good vibes and positive thoughts after losing his 1-year-old daughter. Might not be able to play in this game because of that, and I totally understand it. Christian McCaffrey back at practice this week, and he did practice on Thursday, dealing with that bilateral Achilles tendonitis. Jawan Jennings, a hip injury, also back at practice. The Niners open up the practice window for Yetur Gross-Matos. He practiced on Thursday, and Jake Moody did as well. So with that, we're only ramping up for our preview, but I do want to ask you who you got in this football game. SF for the Niners, TB for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you want to go to this game, be sure to download the Game Time app. And if you have some indecision or you're not sure which app to use, let me tell you, you got to use the Game Time app. Best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. You're going to get in the door with the best vantage point and view while getting in the door with the best price point. They have flash deals and zone deals. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can easily resell tickets on your phone as well. And this is how the app looks when you're interested in buying some tickets. You have that bird's eye view of Raymond James Stadium if you're very particular about which yard line you want to sit at or how much you want to pay. But then you see on the bottom, section 149, row 2, that's what you'll be seeing if you buy those tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. And it's not just an app for sporting events. Thanks to Game Time Picks, you can go to concerts, comedy shows, and theater events. All right, to the back half of the show. The San Francisco 49ers must do the following things in order to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 10 coming off of their bye week. Key to the game number one for me is for this 49ers defense to get off the field on third down. Baker Mayfield has carved the opposition up on money downs this year and in short yardage situations. The Buccaneers tandem at that running back spot, which we'll talk about here coming up, has been really good at manufacturing enough yards to pick up first downs and move the chains. And the Buccaneers have a really good offensive line, and Baker Mayfield does such a good job of making quick decisions and getting rid of the ball quickly, which we'll also talk about coming up here. But you look at where the Niners defense has struggled, 25th in third down defense, so they're only getting off the field 44.1% of the time. The Bucs, on the other hand, offensively are second in third down offense. They are moving the chains at nearly a 52% clip. What will give in this key area on Sunday? Niners have to win the battle on third down. I briefly mentioned that Baker Mayfield lets it rip fast. He will be under center. He will be in the shotgun. Offensive coordinator Liam Cohen is going to use Baker Mayfield in a variety of ways. He's going to get Baker Mayfield to the right, to the left on some naked boots. Oftentimes, though, especially going up against this Niners team that really tries to generate pressure with their front four, Mayfield does such a good job of getting rid of the ball fast to neutralize the pass rush. And this year, because of a lot of those high percentage throws, he's completing a career high 71.5% of his passes. And his numbers are pretty gaudy. Almost 2,400 yards through the air, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions for the 4-5 Bucs at the midway point of the year. So he is on track to have one of the best years of his career with a new OC. And yes, he is without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in this game. But against the Kansas City Chiefs last week on Monday Night Football, he performed pretty damn well. Key to the game number 3 for me is tackling. This has been a concern all year for San Francisco. They have missed double-digit tackles in multiple games this year, and it just can't happen for a team that struggles on third down, because if you miss tackles, offense is able to stay on the field, and then the defense has to stay on the field for San Francisco, and throughout the course of the game, they wear down a little bit. But if you want to go on a tear the second half of the season, which the Niners have been able to do under head coach Kyle Shanahan, you want to take down some of these good teams, you're going to be going up against some good offenses, which they have good play callers and play designers who are going to scheme up yak for their weapons. And so you have to be better at bottling up ball carriers, whether it be wide receivers, running backs, or quarterbacks. And the Buccaneers here have a really good 1-2 punch at that running back spot, and two players who run hard, who run physical, who have a good pad level and a really strong lower half, and they are capable of breaking a lot of tackles. Bucky Irving having a great year for Tampa Bay. The product out of Oregon, 83 carries, 419 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Rachaad White is another player, similar build, similar style. They can both catch the ball out of the backfield. He has 70 carries for 275 yards, a touchdown, and a long of 56. So both of these players are capable of just being consistent backs to the point where they can wear you down throughout the course of the game. And I really like what I've seen from both of these players. And if San Francisco does not tackle a little bit better, these players are going to be able to keep the Niners offense off the field to a point where they could struggle to gather momentum. And Bucky Irving has ended up being a great fourth-round pick out of Oregon for Tampa Bay this year. 5 yards per carry during his rookie campaign. He's really helped that offense a lot. Key to the game number 4. The Niners have to solve the red zone issues. Last year, they were number 1 in red zone touchdown efficiency rate. This year, San Francisco is 28th. And we pop back up these numbers that we have been talking about all year, where San Francisco, they have no issues moving the ball. Second in yards per game with 412. Second in yards per play at 6.5. They've been able to move the chains like Tampa Bay on third down, 43.3%. They're averaging 26 points per game. Last year, they were a tick under 30 points. But the big issue for the Niners, 48.5% red zone touchdown efficiency rate. And that's 28th in the NFL. It's not good enough. The difference between a field goal and a touchdown is obviously huge on the scoreboard, huge with momentum too. And that's a big reason why the Niners have blown a lot of these games, or some of these games that they've held on to win have been a little bit closer than they should. And when you're facing a Buccaneers defense, which is 28th in points per game, 30th in yards per game, 27th in yards per play, 23rd on third downs, and 21st in the red zone at 60%, you should be able, coming out of the bye week, to put a good plan together on how to attack Todd Bowles' defense. Key to the game number 5. The air game, led by Brock Purdy, will be important. And I think that Christian McCaffrey, if he does play in this game, is going to be able to help the air game. He's going to be able to solve some of the red zone issues. But Todd Bowles is a really good defensive mind where sometimes he can put together a plan regardless of what his defensive numbers are, where he can really stop some of the top offensive minds. But that can't be an excuse, and it can't happen for Kyle Shanahan, because this isn't a must-win game, but it's a huge game nonetheless, because if the season were to end right now, the Niners wouldn't be in the playoffs. As for the air game here, the Buccaneers are undefeated since the start of last year when they have allowed under 200 yards passing. And so the Niners are always a complementary offense. They always want to be at about 50% run, 50% pass. But if the Buccaneers are able to keep that passing game in check, could be a long day for San Francisco. Undefeated since the start of 2023 when allowing under 200 yards passing. So predict the score here. San Francisco, Tampa Bay. Who do you got? I think the Niners win this game. My final prediction, 33-23. San Francisco covers the spread, and they're able to win by 10. The state of Florida has really treated them well in some of these big spots. In 2021, they were 3-5. They came out of the bye week. They won against Jacksonville. Last year, they lost 3 games in a row, went on the road to Jacksonville, got a dub. I think that Florida trend continues, and the Niners, who are 4-4 right now, end up getting a good victory over a Buccaneers team, by the way, that has a win on the road against Detroit and at home against Philadelphia, who have been 2 of the top teams in the NFC this year. Spunky Guy, a $2 super chat. Appreciate the deuce, my man. That brings us up to, after Shane Kirshner's $10 super chat, $21 in supers. What's up, Shane? Hope all is well and you're feeling a little bit better. Hey, Chase, do you think that Purdy can have a day throwing for over 300 yards and at least 3 touchdowns with the Bucs secondary being injured? Yeah, the Bucs secondary is a little bit banged up, and they've given up a ton of yards and a lot of points this year. This could be a game where Brock Purdy really does excel. And that's why during the preview I had mentioned the air game going to be important for the Niners. Coming up next here on the show, could the Niners pull off something special? Stay tuned for that. An updated look at our Super Chat battle. We're at $26 in Super Chats. If we beat the highest number here, 210, then I'm giving away a 49ers Report hat. That's our goal for this Thursday, November 7th. So we're up to $26 because Spunky Guy just sent in a 5. So now we're up to $26 thanks to Spunky Guy sending in that 5. We are going to be doing a mailbag, by the way. Get those questions in, hashtag 49ers, or send in a super chat. Segment number 3 is coming up, and then segment number 4 will be our mailbag. So one of the last calls to get your questions in. Spunky Guy, thank you for that as well.
Let's see. Checking in on our questions. We had Shane Kirshner ask one in a super chat. I think Hugo asked, good little comparison, CMC comparing to Gibbs. And then question-wise, another one from Hugo, and then still Chualor, Anthony, and Juan. Get those questions in, baby.
We need some more questions. If you want us to do a mailbag, get those questions in. Get them in, get them in, get them in. Run it up, run it up, run it up. We're also 8 likes away from 100 here on the stream. So be sure to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. All right, segment number 3 coming up right now. And I'm excited to dive into this one. We'll take a look at the NFC West standings, the NFC playoff picture, and some interesting data that could point to the Niners going on a tear. Are the San Francisco 49ers about to embark and pull off something special? We're talking about that on today's San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, as always, I greatly appreciate you for watching and supporting the show. There are so many talented content creators out there and media members who cover this team, so anytime you decide to hang out with me to get your Niners content, it really goes a long way. Let's really set the foundation here by taking a look at the NFC West standings, because that serves as a little bit of a launch point for today's show. And remember the question, are the Niners about to embark and pull off something special? They have some work to do in the division. There is no doubt about that. And the NFC West has become one of the more fascinating divisions in football. Going into 2024, with the Niners being as talented as they are, with them coming off a Super Bowl defeat, you're thinking, Niners are going to run away with this division. It's been anything but a runaway year for San Francisco. They're not even in first place. The surprise Arizona Cardinals, led by Kyler Murray, who's playing good, smart, efficient, dual-threat football this year. The Cardinals are 5-4, 2-0 inside the NFC West. Pitched a second-half shutout in Week 5 against San Francisco. Beat the Rams prior to that in a blowout, and they have a couple of good wins on the schedule. The Rams starting to get a lot healthier. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua are back. Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, they are coming back along the offensive line. Los Angeles has won 3 games in a row and just beat Seattle last week in overtime on a Matthew Stafford dime to Demarcus Robinson, who reeled that football in with one hand. And so the Rams are surging. The Cardinals have won 4 of 5. The Niners are the best team in this division, at least the most talented, but they've been up and down all year, and they are what their record says they are. 500 football team at 4-4, 1-2 in the division. And then the Seattle Seahawks, who the Niners play in Week 11 next week, we'll be back for another watch party for that game, are 4-5, 0-2 in the division with losses to the Rams and San Francisco. If the season were to end today, the Niners wouldn't even be in the playoffs. The number 1 seed, the Detroit Lions at 7-2. Really good football team on both sides of the rock, a Final Four team from last year. Of course, they lost that 17-point lead to the Niners in the NFC Championship game. Jared Goff is playing like an MVP candidate. They just traded for edge rushers Zadarius Smith. I really like their backfield, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They have one of the top offensive lines in football, and their defense has been pretty good. The surprise Washington Commanders, outside of Arizona, one of the more surprising teams in the league this year. Number 2 seed for Jaden Daniels, who, like Jared Goff, is playing at an MVP level. The Commanders are 7-2. The Atlanta Falcons, they invested a lot of money into that football team. They gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed. He's shaking off the rust from earlier in the year when he was coming off that torn Achilles, and Atlanta's playing good football. You have the Cardinals at 5-4, leaders of the NFC West in that 4 spot. The Vikings have slid a little bit, 1-2 in their last 3 games, but Sam Darnold and Minnesota still in that 5th seed. The Philadelphia Eagles, also a wild card team, at 6-2. The Packers 6-3 as the 7th seed. And this is why San Francisco has to get it together, because some of these divisions are so closely contested where some of the second place teams in those divisions are occupying the wild card spots. So in the bubble and on the playoff bubble, the Chicago Bears, the 49ers, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As for the Niners' schedule the rest of the way, Week 10 coming out of the bye on the road against the Buccaneers. They should be able to win that game. They are far better than the Seattle Seahawks. They should win that game. Ideally, that gives the Niners a 6-4 record. They always play the Packers well, but the Packers are a good squad. And when you have to go on the road in Lambeau, that'll be a difficult game. You're also going to continue to be on the road for another difficult game against the Buffalo Bills. Then you come back home, you take on the Chicago Bears, improved young football team, although their coach is a fraud, and Matt Eberflus. Week 15, the Niners will host the Rams. Then it's another cross-country trip to take on the Miami Dolphins. If Tua Tagovailoa plays, he makes that team a lot more dangerous, as Kyle Shanahan will take on Mike McDaniel. Week 17 against the Lions, that could determine playoff seeding and playoff fate. And then Week 18 against the Cardinals, that could decide the division in the final week of the regular season. The positives that we've seen from the Niners so far: the NFC is wide open. I think San Francisco matches up well with Detroit and Washington and Atlanta and Arizona and Philadelphia and Minnesota. And so the conference is up for grabs, and the Niners, you can make the argument, are the most talented team inside the NFC. The NFC West also up for grabs. You win the division, you get a playoff game. That's ideally what San Francisco can accomplish here in the back half of the year. The offense has moved the ball. They're number 2 in yards per game, so that's a positive. San Francisco starting to get healthier. Christian McCaffrey coming back. Dre Greenlaw, Jawan Jennings, John Feliciano, Yetur Gross-Matos. They're getting a lot of players back. Talanoa Hufanga, Jake Moody, the list goes on and on and on. And what we've seen from the Niners, they clearly have a talent edge, and the youth movement has been pivotal. Ricky Pearsall's played well. Same can be said for Isaac Guerrero, Renardo Green, Malik Mustafa, most importantly, Dominic Pooney. And that youth movement is very exciting for an older football team to help you sustain throughout the rigors of a 17-game, 18-week schedule. There are some negatives, though, for San Francisco. The red zone offense stinks, 28th among 32 teams. The third down defense has been lackluster. Also bottom third in the NFL. They can't get off the field on third downs. The defensive holes are an issue. There have been communication and scheme breakdowns on that back end, leading to explosive plays in the pass game by the opposition. I don't trust the offensive line play. Jake Brendel and Dominic Pooney haven't given up a sack. That's great, but you still have Colton McKivitz and Aaron Banks, who are average players right now, and Colton McKivitz will always be an average player. We've seen Aaron Banks play at a higher level than that. And the other thought that comes to mind, is it just a season of bad vibes? The ball has not bounced the Niners' way. They've had bad losses against the Rams and Cardinals, 2 games that they should have won. They got embarrassed by Minnesota and Kansas City, and they've had all these injuries. So is it just not the Niners' year? That could be an issue too. Now coming up next, why a turnaround could be looming and how San Francisco could put together something special. Let's first give a shout out to our sponsor for today, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. You want to play Prize Picks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, MMA champ Sean O'Malley, Chase Sr., and Jake Chipper? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. So here are selections for Niners Buccaneers on Sunday. Juwan Jennings, more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. George Kittle, more than 55 and a half receiving yards. Baker Mayfield, less than 241 and a half passing yards. So get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. All you have to do, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Now, before I explain how San Francisco can embark on something special, we know what the Niners are capable of. Look no further than their numbers. Yes, they've been bad in the red zone, but if they can cure some of those problems, this is a team that can easily average over 30 points per game and be that unit that they were last year when they were the number one overall offense in the NFL. 6th in points per game, 2nd in yards per game, as I noted earlier, 2nd in yards per play, 6th on third downs. But they're 28th in the red zone. They have to capitalize in that red area. And the return of Christian McCaffrey, I think, can really help them do that. Defensively, some holes there, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but you do have some really, really good players. Nick Bosa is playing at an all-pro level. Fred Warner, a Defensive Player of the Year type of campaign. Renardo Green has really emerged. Diamador Lenore is playing at a Pro Bowl, all-pro type of level. Can Jair Brown give you a little bit more at that safety spot? Like what I've seen from Malik Mustafa, you could get Talanoa Hufanga back. And so you can envision a path where the Niners do get it together. Which brings me to this. That has been the history of this team of late and under Kyle Shanahan. Over the last 3 years, the 49ers have won 70% of their games in the back half. I started covering this team in 2021. And each year, there has been a similar feeling, right? Where there have been some ugly losses, and you're thinking, this team is screwed. But then, they get the engines revved up after the bye or at the halfway point of the season, and they become one of the hottest teams in the National Football League. We've literally seen that 3 straight years. In 2021, the Niners started 3-5, then they went 10-7. So 7-2 the rest of the way, made it to the NFC Championship game, won 2 road playoff games with Jimmy Garoppolo. In 2022, they start 4-4. They make the trade for Christian McCaffrey. And once he became starter, they didn't lose again until the NFC Championship game. And then last year, started 5-0, lost 3 in a row, finished 12-5, number 1 seed in the NFC, home field advantage, made it to the Super Bowl, and they were a couple of plays away from winning that game. And so San Francisco, given their history as a team, how they've peaked mid to late portions of the year, their coaching, their talent, their resume, their championship level pedigree, they can put together a really special back half of the year. And if they do, they can be a team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans in February. And under Kyle Shanahan, here's that track record, man. The 49ers are 21-33 before the bye, but 43-18 after the bye. And over the last 3 years, San Francisco in the second half of the season, 30-8. I don't care who your opposing team is. That is so impressive and so hard to do at the NFL level. 30-8 in the second half of the season the last 3 years. And so we round out by taking another look at the Niners' schedule. Can they do something special here? Buccaneers, winnable game. Seahawks, winnable game. Packers, Bills, winnable game. If you can go 3-1 in this stretch, you become 7-5, okay? Then you play the Chicago Bears, 8-5. Rams, and you split the season series, 9-5. Dolphins, 10-5. Lions and Cardinals. There is a path here in which San Francisco can win 11-12 games. Lions will be a hard game. Cardinals will be a hard game. These divisional games, always tough. Rams are legit. Seattle is legit. A lot of these games are going to be nail-biters. But San Francisco's capable, and we've seen them be able to pull this off. So your level of confidence that the Niners can pull off something special and get back to the Super Bowl. Scale it for me, 1 to 100. 1, not confident at all. 100, all in. Acoustic Night, a $10 super chat. I think a lot of people are expecting Christian McCaffrey to have production like last year, but I think we should take care of him and not overuse him, at least for his first real game. I agree. And I charted out earlier kind of what I think the Niners should do as far as the workload for how they're going to run it. And let me pull that photo up because I agree. I don't think that San Francisco should overuse him. I think they have to be aware of not overusing him and running him into the ground. So let's just talk carries here, right? And Chip can pull this up. Good work by you, brother. Thank you. Christian McCaffrey. Let's say you give him the rock via a carry, 12 to 15 times per game, right? Jordan Mason gets it 8 to 10 times. Isaac Rendo, 5 to 8. And so Kyle Shanahan is still able to call 25 to 32 running plays a game, and I think that's a happy zone to be in, and that's where ideally San Francisco wants to be because they're about a 50% run-pass team. So I agree. Good point made by you, and thank you so much for that $10 Super Chat Acoustic Night. You can't mess around with bilateral Achilles tendonitis. Our Super Chat battle, we are up to $36 in Super Chats. So we're $19 away from taking down Seahawks today. Cowboys report did 110 earlier this week. Eagles now yesterday did 210. If we beat the highest number here, 210, I'm giving away a hat. That's what we're due, and that's the deal for the people. John Wallace at 83%. That's his confidence level in the Niners. Robert Wade, 98.5. Manny Felix, 100. T-Mac, 68. Spunky Guy, 100. So everybody's kind of all over the place. And I totally get it. I totally get it. All right, how we doing on questions?
We look good. If you want to get last-minute question in right now before we start, feel free, super chat or use hashtag 49ers. But people did solid. I think we have enough. Get a little, 10 minutes out of this piece.
Cool. Yeah, we'll take your questions for the next 10 minutes. We'll take your super chats first, so get those super chats in. Hey there, welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend. Niners Bucs coming up on Sunday. Cannot wait for it. And if you've never watched one of our watch parties, we do an hour pregame show. Then we do live play-by-play, audience interaction, instant reaction. We do a post-game show. We chop it up with the faithful. We do super chat giveaways where we give away autographed jerseys and customized 49ers Report footballs. It's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. So hopefully I convince you with that sales pitch to join us on Sunday, Week 10. Niners on the road against the Buccaneers. The show begins at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Acoustic Night with the $10 Super Chat. I like the profile picture right there, my man, because it looks like you're on a hike. I love hiking, and that is a beautiful backdrop right there. Looked like you had a good time. As for your question, let's have a good time with that. I think a lot of people are expecting Christian McCaffrey to have the production of last year, but I think that we should take care of him and not overuse him, at least for his first real action game. Now, a couple of interesting things on this front, right? The Niners opened up his practice window this week. He's been responding well, no pain after practicing. Richard Sherman had said on his podcast, I heard it from the horse's mouth, that McCaffrey's feeling good. He's ready to go. If the Niners were to have a game last week, he could have played, and he expects Christian McCaffrey to have a pretty sizable workload. But what did the Niners do last year? Did McCaffrey have a special year? He was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He was tied for first in touchdowns with 21. He had more than 2,000 all-purpose yards. But Kyle Shanahan even admitted that Christian McCaffrey is one of his own worst enemies last year because he refused to come off the field. The guy loves ball. He grew up with the father who was a Super Bowl champion and an All-Pro. And his father went to the lengths of great detail when McCaffrey was in high school, where if he got tackled by his jersey, grounded. Had to go to bed at a certain time every single night. Didn't wear jeans on game days because they would make his legs tired. Would have to wear shades and not squint because it would take away from his energy. The dude lives and breathes football, and it's very special. But he has to understand the big picture here. The Niners have to understand the big picture. They signed him to a contract extension through 2027. They upped his average annual value. They gave him guaranteed money. We're talking about not just one Achilles issue, an Achilles issue in both legs. And so the Niners have to manage his workload a little bit, and they can afford to do that. In previous years, they haven't had a backup back. They do now. Jordan Mason, Isaac Guerendo, they can play. And so I'm with you, especially for this game against Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay has struggled in covering the pass, and they're banged up at corner. And so San Francisco could rely on Brock Purdy in the pass game on Sunday. Shane Kirshner, $10 super chat. Hey, Chase. Hey, Shane. Do you think that Purdy can have a day throwing for over 300 yards and at least 3 touchdowns with the Bucs secondary being injured? And, I referenced it moments ago, but let's expand on that. And thank you so much for the $10 donation. Brock Purdy this year has been kind of up and down. When you look at his numbers, touchdown-interception ratio, not great. He's completing under 65% of his passes. He's also had to deal with a lot of different moving parts. We've seen at times that he's been able to maximize his teammates and play really good ball. We've seen him struggle against some really good defenses, Minnesota and Kansas City. All quarterbacks have bad games. I think that Brock Purdy, since he became the Niners starter, is like a top 10 guy in the league. Is he elite to the level of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen? No. And those guys are a lot freakier athletically, but he's a really good player, and he's capable of carrying this Niners offense, especially against a team in the Buccaneers who he's had success going up against in the past against Todd Bowles types of defenses. Now, Todd Bowles is a good defensive mind, but this year, the Buccaneers all across the board have been a bottom 5, bottom 10 defense, especially against the pass, and yes, they are banged up in that secondary. Juan, when healthy, should John Feliciano immediately replace Jake Brendel? He's been looking even worse than Colton McKivitz. You know what's crazy? I agree that Jake Brendel isn't really a high-level starting center in this league. That's an area where I want to see the Niners get better next offseason. He's just a little bit too small. When he has to go up against the likes of Chris Jones, it's just such a large gap in talent and ability. He hasn't given up a sack this year, though. Him and Dominic Pooney have not given up a sack. So with that being said, I think what the Niners envision Feliciano's role being is their 6th offensive lineman, a player who can play left guard. He did that last year. He could play center. He did that with the Giants a couple of years ago. He could play right guard. He was the starting right guard for this team in the Super Bowl. And so he could play 3 of the 5 offensive line spots, and it's valuable to have a guy like that. If Aaron Banks continues to struggle, though, Feliciano being at left guard would not surprise me. T-Mac, do you think the bad start of the season falls more on Kyle or on Brock Purdy? It's a good question. I think ultimately it falls on the coach because when you have a 14-point lead against the Rams in the second half, you have to manage the game better. You can't blow that lead. When you were leading big time at halftime and you had a Nick Bosa pick around midfield and a Diamador Lenore scoop and score on a blocked field goal against the Cardinals, and you're up double digits, yet you don't score in the second half, that's on the coach. When that Cowboys game starts to get very dicey, that's on coaching. I actually think it was more on Nick Sorensen. How is CeeDee Lamb so open? And so has Brock Purdy been as good as he was last year? No. Has he been truly elite? No. In moments, has he been very good? No doubt about it. Can he be better? Yeah, and he needs to be if the Niners want to fulfill their potential this year. So both need to be better. Kyle Shanahan hasn't done a great job with red zone play calling and execution. Brock Purdy could also be better in the red zone, although the lack of efficiency on first down and the lack of good offensive line play, especially in that red area, hurts him. And so, football is rarely one thing or one person to blame. There are 11 players on the field at one time. And just to speak to the nuances of football, last week I'm watching Cowboys-Falcons. And on a 4th down, Mike McCarthy tried to run a jet sweep to CeeDee Lamb, and he got tackled for a loss. And Greg Olsen made a good point of how the defender was able to get to CeeDee Lamb just because of the fact that he was in a 2-point stance instead of a 4-point stance. And if he was in a 4-point stance, he couldn't have gotten out to CeeDee Lamb. But because he was in a different stance or he was more upright, he was able to tackle CeeDee Lamb. So like sometimes football is decided razor thin margins, such nuances and complexities of the game, and you can't often just blame one person because the offensive line can be better. Deebo Samuel can be better. The defense has had so many breakdowns. I don't love the coaching. I haven't loved the scheme. Nick Bosa leads the NFL in pressures. He's been bad at tackling, and he hasn't generated sacks. Leonard Floyd is having a down year. And so there are so many things that go into it. Hugo de Jesus. If we lose to any more NFC teams, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs. If that happens, are we rebuilding? I don't think it's a rebuild. I think it's a reset. And for San Francisco also, think about how much football they've played, having gone to 4 NFC titles and 2 Super Bowls over the last 5 years. I mean, you're playing deep into January or February, and you have shorter off seasons with an aging roster. I actually think it could serve the Niners well in a way if they have some more rest. Now, do you have to rebuild? I don't think so. Think about this draft class. Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Dominic Pooney, Isaac Arenda, Renardo Green, Malik Mustafa. Good players right there. Brock Purdy's still young. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, they're still young and under contract. Deommodore Lenoir, if you re-sign him, that'll be his first non-rookie deal. And so you still have a lot of young players on your team. Jair Brown, he'll be going into year 3. And so I don't think it's a rebuild. I think it could be a reset. Do you have to make some changes? Yeah, maybe. Do you get rid of a Kyle Juszczyk because of that cap hit? Do you get rid of a Deebo Samuel because his production's gone down and he's been injured a lot? Yeah, that could happen. Do you make a difficult decision elsewhere in which you decide to let go of a player? There could be changes made. I don't think it's rebuilding. I think it's a reset or retool, and I think that that's a little bit different. The notorious Gav. How much will Kris Kocurek improve the new defensive tackle Davis? Yeah, so Khalil Davis, 28 years old. He's like 315, 320 pounds the last 2 years. He's been a pretty good rotational defensive tackle, and he's going to continue to be a rotational defensive tackle. I think why the Niners like him at that size, 4.75 40-yard dash in the pre-draft process. So he's explosive, has short area quickness and explosion, and a good get-off. And Kocurek, he can maximize the heck out of defensive linemen. John Wallace, my worries are Colton McKivitz and Kyle being pass happy too soon. I saw some people in the comments section this week saying, I want the Niners to pass more. No. Look, you think about the Detroit Lions, right? They have the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Jared Goff is playing at an MVP level. They run the ball more than 50% of the time. The Philadelphia Eagles, during their 4-game winning streak, are running it 60% of the time. I think when the Niners are like 50-50, even 52-48, run, pass, that's when they play their best football. And how do you help out a struggling offensive line, John? Run the football. Colton McKivitz isn't a bad run blocker. He's not a good pass blocker. But you give that offensive line momentum, swagger, confidence, a feeling of domination because they can beat up the opposition by running it, getting physical, getting out in space, laying some pancakes on some pull blocks. That's how you help out that offensive line, which then sets up the pass game. So I agree. Kyle Shanahan can't get too pass happy. And this offense has been a little bit different as compared to previous years, where he has thrown it a little bit more. Less under center, more shotgun. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here on the show. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in, especially during this mailbag, because it's always good to hang out and talk some Niners football with all of you. 4 segments down.
Appreciate all those good questions. The faithful, the real ones.
As always. All right, let's do this. Let's pop up our 2-minute super chat shot clock. If we get a super chat within 2 minutes, we'll stay live. Caleb Ozulax sends in a 5, so I'm going to reset it right here. All right? So we reset the super chat shot clock. We are up to $42 in supers. So if we beat the biggest number of Eagles now, which is 210, I'm giving away a 49ers Report hat. If not, we'll give some of these away during our Sunday watch party. So Caleb with that $5 super chat, again, gets us up to $42.49. We'll give you 43 there. And the number to beat, 210. Couple of rival channels right here. Can the Niners make the playoffs, John Rizzo? For sure. Talked about that a lot on the show here today. Drippy Sports, what's up? Chua Lore, how are you? Here is Caleb's $5 super chat. What is GBP as far as... I think it is Chip. Yes. Look at you, man. That is the pound. The pound, wow. Used in Jersey, Guernsey, Gibraltar, Isle of Man, South Georgia. All right, so let's read it out. Where do you see Russell Gage coming in handy for the Niners? Will he be able to play at Ayuk or Pearsall's level when it's his time to shine? So they signed him to the practice squad, and that video that I did yesterday and talking about him did like 50,000 views, and maybe you saw that, and that's what prompted you to ask the question. This is a pretty accomplished player in the NFL, but I think he's more of an emergency player on the practice squad where if an injury were to happen, they elevate him to the active roster. But Russell Gage is a player who has played well and done some nice things throughout his NFL career. I don't think that he's going to get at Ayuk or Pearsall's level because he's not that guy, but he does have some good seasons in recent memory. In 2020, he had 109 targets, 72 catches, 786 yards, 4 touchdowns. In 2021, 94 targets, 66 grabs, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Both of those seasons with Atlanta. He played with the Buccaneers in 2022. 70 targets, 51 catches, 426 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Did not play in 2023. He was a 6th-round pick out of LSU back in, what was that? I think 2018. He was on the Ravens practice squad a little bit earlier this year. Let go as part of final roster cuts prior to 2024. In 2023, during training camp, he suffered a torn patellar tendon. And so that knee injury caused him to miss 2023. Hugo De Jesus. I did a couple of questions on the Niners. Can you answer them? We included it in the mailbag. We included it in the mailbag. Nick Dofer, a $24 super chat. And we'll pop up that Hugo one. Yeah, we included you in the mailbag, my man. And I answered. Nick Dofer with the 24, his patented $24 super chat. Who is going to have the biggest impact for this week's game? We all know Christian McCaffrey will be epic. Who can I throw out there other than CMC? I think George Kittle, he's having an all-pro year. In the red zone, I want to see the Niners use him more. He's helped them figure out some of their red zone problems. But if the defense has to account for CMC, running it, coming out of the backfield as a pass catcher, opens things up for George Kittle in the flat, down the seam, down the numbers. So I'll go George Kittle. Defensively, let's go Renardo Green. He continues his ascent as a young player. John Rizzo, $2 super chat. If you're a service member, my man, thank you so much for your service. Kind of looks like that, but it's hard for me to tell. Either way, thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks for watching the show. John Rizzo said Juwan Jennings. John Wallace said Garendo. The Notorious Gav said Ricky Pearsall. I like that. Kyle Shanahan's using a whole route tree for Ricky Pearsall right now. It's pretty impressive. Greg Smith also said Garendo. John Rizzo said yes. Salute to you, man. Salute to you. All right, I'm resetting the Super Chat shot clock. Resetting it right here. 2 minutes. We're at 70 right now. 70 right now. We get past 210. And I'm giving away a Niners Report hat. Cerebral said Purdy. That's another good one. John Wallace, Deshaun Gibson did get signed back to the practice squad. Nick Dolfer, Kittle is a beast. He's been awesome this year. Best tight end in football for the second consecutive year. Production standpoint, eye test standpoint. Josh Marin, a $5 super chat. His third ever super. We are 25 away from 100.
Let's see, 75, so we're beating Seattle by 20. And
Yes,
we're
we just beat the Seahawks Today channel.
What are we down? 40 to the Cowboys?
Down 40 to the Cowboys.
35?
That would be 20, 30, 35.
Yeah.
Down 35 to the Cowboys report. Down 35 to the Cowboys report. Reset the 2-minute super chat shot clock for Josh Marin. Will the Niners make the number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs from John Rizzo? I don't think so, man. I think the Lions are too good. 7-2. Niners are 4-4. 3 games in the win column right there. How much do we need to be worried about the Bucs tight end? Notorious guy. Good question. Cole Otton's a really good player. I think he's actually one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL. He has a good rapport working with Baker Mayfield. The bots are in the chat. Get out of here. The Lions are coming. Should we be worried? Good football team. Very creative. With the best play caller in football right now, and Ben Johnson. John Wallace, I'm calling it 12-5. Wow, so they finished the year with only 1 loss. Need to win this game then. Got to take care of business.
Be impressive with games against Packers, Bills, Lions. To only lose 1 more game?
Yeah.
That'd be what? They're 4-4, so that'd be 8-1?
8-1 the rest of the way.
Woo! That'd be something.
Yep. I mean, look, they've done it before. They won 12 in a row after the McCaffrey trade. But this schedule's a lot harder than in previous years. There are a lot of, borderline playoff teams. All right, we are going to hop on out of here. Thanks to everybody for supporting the show, hanging out, talking some Niners. Thanks for the super chats. Don't worry. No Niners Report hat giveaway today, but we will be giving a hat away, and maybe multiple hats, during our watch party on Sunday. So we will catch you then, live at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. For those of you on the West Coast, you'll be waking up early with us. Plenty of content to come the rest of the week. I'll be on with Larry Krueger tomorrow, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. on the West Coast. Always a good Niner show with him. So for Chip, I'm Chase. For the faithful and the Niner gang, we out. See ya.